Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Darren and Kylie from McTish here. Hope everyone's had a fantastic week. Thanks for taking the time for jumping on our webinar this morning. Today, we're going to cover the Content Manager workflow module, and from our perspective, one of the modules that is the most underutilized in the Content Manager suite. For those that have seen the module before, Kylie's going to take us through, overview of the module, create and edit basic workflows, talk about how to add reference documents, and create basic templates with associated actions. Workflow tends to kick up a whole heap of questions. So rather than handle those through the webinar today, what we'll ask you to do is just to send them through, and we'll respond via email or give you a call post the webinar. The team will be able to get back to you early next week. I'm going to hand over to Kylie now to take you through Content Manager workflow. Have a good webinar.
Good morning and welcome. This morning I'm going to take you through and show you what the Content Manager workflow looks like. As Darren said, it is very underutilized, but it is a really cool little module that comes with Content Manager out of the box. So as you can see here, we are partnered with some of the biggest industry players, Micro Focus, Record Point, Microsoft. Okay. Got some services there. We do records management, we do information management, technical, and we also do a lot of training in various products. We do have a broad product suite, as you can see on the slide here, Record Point, Brolly, Content Manager, EasyScan, One Place Mail, InMailX, and including the Office 365 suite. Now, what we're going to cover today is I'm going to go through and let you know what a workflow is, what makes up a workflow. I'm going to give you a bit of a demonstration on how to create it. Also, how to create the template in Content Manager. Brief demonstration on how to use the workflow template in the installed client as well, if we've got time, the web client, and show you how to complete these activities with the workflow. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them into the IM section, and if we do get time at the end, I'll answer them. Otherwise, we will take your questions and I will send out the answers after the webinar is completed. What is a workflow? Basically, the Content Manager workflow module, it does allow you to automate your business processes and track them inside Content Manager. The documents that are associated with these workflows stay inside Content Manager, as well as all the history for those documents as they get edited. The workflow itself, once the workflow is completed, that does remain inside Content Manager as well. By default, they're there for 5 years, and then they can have their disposition updated and changed. The workflow templates, they are created and can be used multiple times. Usually administrators and records managers have the ability to create these workflow templates, but any user can use these workflow templates inside the system. One really cool thing with the workflows, they are not record centric. So you can kick a workflow off without having any records associated with it. You can also, if you really wanted to, kick off a workflow and create the workflow as you go. But most of the workflows that people use always have a record, or the resulting outcome is there are records attached to these workflows. What makes up a workflow? There are multiple streams of activities, and all these activities come together to create your workflow. You have start conditions. They can be single start condition or a multiple start condition for the workflows. There are activity branches for decision making. So when you are completing an activity of a workflow, depending on the decision that is made, will depend on the next branch of the workflow it tracks on. There is a rollback for the activity. So for example, if you have an activity that allows you to draft information and it's been sent off for review, if there is further work required on this document that's sent off to review, it can get rolled back to the drafting activity again, and the drafter can continue to do some more work on it. You can nest activities together. So you have like a parent activity, and underneath there you have sub-activities. So for example, you may have to send a letter off to somebody, but before you can do that, you've got to print the document, sub-activity 1, get it signed, sub-activity 2, and send the document off. Sub-activity 3, and that will complete the parent activity. You can also attach your working and reference documents. So the working documents allow you to edit the documents throughout the workflow. Reference documents are attached so you can refer to them as you're looking at the activities. There is no need to edit the reference documents. They're there to provide further information to help you complete the activity itself and update any working document that is attached, which is actually pretty cool. Also, multiple records can be associated with the workflow. So you can have reference documents, multiple of those. You can have working documents, multiples of those as well. So you can have any number of records attached to your workflow. You can also skip activities. So depending if an activity has been met or not, the decision, you can actually skip it. So if it has to go down branch A, but branch B is not required, everything on branch B will actually be skipped, which is actually pretty cool. Now, when it comes to a workflow, where to start? Well, the first place I highly recommend you start is you've got to draw it first. It is very difficult to create the workflows inside Content Manager if you don't really know the process you're going to be creating. So my highly recommendation is draw it. And as you can see there, I've been very busy putting my little workflow together, and I've been rubbing stuff out, putting stuff in, moving stuff around. Once you are happy with it on paper, you can then continue into Content Manager and actually start creating it. Also, when it comes to documenting your workflow business process, perfect opportunity to refine it and make it better. Make it simpler as you are going along. So I've got a pretty simple one there. Took a little bit to put together, but it's nice and simple and easy to use. Now we have to create it. So once you've got it on your piece of paper, it is time to actually jump into Content Manager and create it. This is actually the one I will be using today to demonstrate to you. Those boxes are your activities, and as you can see in the little section at the bottom of the box, they are the decisions that belong to the activities. The green lines means the activities are moving forward, and the red lines are the rollbacks. So if the decision is made, for example, the response has not been signed in activity 4 there, it'll roll back to activity 2, draft response, so it can actually get reworked again. Use it. Once you've created it in Content Manager, it is now time to use it. As I mentioned previously, anyone can use a workflow template. Once it's created, it is ready for everyone to use. You attach your records, but you can actually start the workflow without any records associated with it, being no records may be in the workflow at all, or the resulting right at the end is going to be a document. You can reassign their workflow activity. So if it has been accidentally assigned to you, this workflow activity, you can reassign it to somebody else and get them to work on it. There is a time limit to complete the activities. So you may have 4 hours to complete an activity. You can get an email saying, hey, your activity is due within X hours. And you may also get an email advising that your activity is actually overdue. You should have completed it an hour ago. Also, there is some additional setup that you do in the system options, which does allow you to set your start of working day time and your end of the working day time. Now, this is a really cool feature, because if you receive an activity at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and your day finishes at 5 p.m. and you've got 4 hours to complete the activity, it will not become overdue while you're away. 1 hour will expire, and then until you hit 5 p.m. The other 3 hours don't kick until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, which is actually really cool. So nothing is going to expire while you are away. And workflows do have a retention period by default of 5 years in Content Manager, and this can actually change. So you can do some searching to actually find these workflows and then determine whether you keep them or you go ahead and destroy them as such. With that in mind, I'm now going to go over into Content Manager, and I will put a workflow together so you can have a look and see how the activities start to come together, and then I will show you how it actually gets used. Today, I'm using Content Manager 9.3 to demonstrate the workflows to you. So if you are looking to where your workflows templates might be located, they are under the Manage ribbon, and on the right-hand side here, you'll see your workflow templates. I already have two sitting in my content manager. I have an Australia Post mail and I have an incoming correspondent. To create a workflow template is very, very easy. You just right click in the window and do a new template. You give your template a name, something that is going to be relevant for what it will be used for. You have the option to treat your initiating record as a working document, reference document, replace a default container, or ignore. This example, I'll put it in as a working document. You can set your priority as well. The default is medium. You can set a default container. Now, this actually allows you to put all your documents created on this workflow into this default container. You can select the default record type to use as well. So rather than the users, as they attach documents that are not content manager documents to the workflow, the record type is already selected for you. You can have a workflow supervisor. They will also receive the email. So as the assignee gets the email advising they have been assigned an activity, the workflow supervisor will receive the email as well. And the total estimated duration down the bottom, that is a combination of all the time required to complete all the activities, and that will be completed once the template has been completed. Under documents, if you wanted to add a reference document, you can, and that just allows you to go and search through Content Manager to find that document. Your options, this determines when the activities are going to start. So you have some options there. And as you can see there, there's one of the places where the retention period for workflows based on this template is located. You can add some notes in this workflow template on what it might be used for. So you just click on Add Note. I'm just going to use it for outgoing correspondence. There we go. Pop that in there. These other notes, as your activities start to be created, they will appear in here, and these will be the notes from your activities that you can view from here. You have your object access controls, so you can restrict who can use, update, modify, access, and delete this. And you do have copied access, which will determine these access controls will get copied down to the activities and other workflows. Once you are happy with your general new template, click OK, and you're actually taken in to the workflow design editor. I have one activity sitting there already, so what I can do is just right click on it and go into properties, and I can actually update the activity information. So my first activity might review the correspondence. Make sure I spell check that field, very good. You can, if you wish, assign this activity at this point in time. However, if you don't know who it is going to be assigned to, you leave it blank. You can assign this to note a supervisor in here by just clicking on the quick select icon and do a lookup. Select the appropriate location. The estimated duration. The assignee, how long do they have to complete this workflow activity? So if we click on the lookup, I can let them know, well, you've got 2 hours to actually complete this particular activity. You can pop in the estimated cost if you wish to see how much completing this activity will cost, and you need to set a priority. Start conditions, there is no need to put any start conditions in here because this is the very first activity, but you do need to determine the result. What is the result of this particular activity? Now, what are we going to do? We're going to review the correspondence. So the result in here might be correspondence reviewed. You can put in a description here as well if you wish, and you just click OK. You can attach any documents. So as you can see, this is the placeholder for the initiating record, and you might like to add in a working document. Now, what this actually does is the user will go in and create another document, and they need to add it into this particular activity. You can set up who is going to authorize this particular activity once the user has completed it. You just select from the locations. If this needs to be escalated, who can this activity be escalated to? Once again, you just add the escalation and add in the person or group who this should be escalated to. And then how long overdue should the escalation occur? Email recipients, this is for the CC notifications. If outside the initial assignee, you want other people to receive this particular activity email, you can pop them in there. Options, these are the email notification options required for this activity. They are all ticked by default, but you might like to, you don't want us to receive an email when it's incomplete, when it's completed, skipped, for example. And down the bottom here, you've got options for completing the activity. I do like to have the completion dialog box to show, so I untick hide the box. This is where you can add some notes in regards to this activity, and this might be a really good place to put some information here on what the user needs to do to complete this activity, their instructions. And once again, the other notes are from the other workflow template or other activities in the workflow itself. Once you are completed the activity, you just click OK. To create a second activity, you just right click and add activity. So my correspondence has been reviewed, and it might be draft second response, because they may have asked some information from the first one. I'm going to leave the assigned to blank. Same with the supervisor. My duration, they've got a day to do this. Estimate a cost and priority. My start conditions. As this is the second activity, I do need to put a start condition in here. Depends on the following activity, which is the one before it, and it can be completed with any result if there's more than one result in there, or you might like just to select the individual result. What's the result of activity 2? Just pop a new result in there. We're drafting a second response, that's right. Add a result, second response drafted. Click OK. This might be the place where I add in my working document, so the user has to add in the document. Draft a response. Record must be associated with the activity before being completed, so they have to attach it. And I can set the default record type from here as well. And you might like to pop in that reference document, which is the initiating record. There it is. Okay. Go through the other tabs. You might like to check your options and untick the items that you don't want to receive emails for. Add in any notes, and you can review the other notes from the activities as well. And there is your second activity. Now you continue on your merry way creating the further activities. You might need to neaten up your lines as you go, but you continue creating these activities. As you can go along, you do need to hit save. There is no undo. So if you accidentally hit close and don't save it, you will have to start again. So that is a quick demonstration on how to create the activities and put them together. Once your workflow template is created, you can use it. So I'll close out of there. Now I have a letter here from a person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate using my incoming correspondence workflow, and I'm actually going to kick it off via a record to begin with. So someone has written into our organisation in relation to a bubble incident that happened on Mary Street last week, or the week before. Yeah, it was last week. So to kick this off, we need to do a response to it. Just right click on it, go down to workflow, and you need to initiate the workflow. Select your template you wish to use. It will ask you to do a search for the template you want to use. Oh, there it is, incoming correspondence. It's treating the initiating record, the D1964 is my initiating record. And down the bottom here is the name of the workflow. So you might like to give your workflow a name that makes sense to you. There we go. And click OK. When you click OK, the workflow editor will pop up. Now this is the workflow editor for the workflow you are about to kick off. If you make changes here, it does not affect the template. So this information is based on the template we've created. And as we can see in here, the very first activity is assigned to me. But I'm going to leave the others not assigned so I can show you how to assign those as we go. If you don't need to make any changes, you can click save, and the save is actually what prompts the workflow to be started. So I hit save there. The workflow has now been kicked off. Remove that. Now in a couple of minutes, I will receive an email from content manager advising I have an activity that's been assigned to me. But while we wait, here's one I prepared earlier. So this is what the email looks like out of the box of Content Manager. These can be customized using the email templates to allow to pop in your logo, add some more space in there, and put your own set of words in there. And you can add the notes field if the instructions have been popped in the notes field. That .tr5 there, that is the link to the activity inside Content Manager. So if I double click on that, it will open up in Content Manager for me to my activities due tray. And you've probably just seen there on the bottom right corner, I've received the email about my workflow activity being assigned to me. So I'll go back into my mailbox, and there it is on top there. It's the one I've just kicked off. So I'll double click on that to bring it up into my activities due tray, and there it is, there's the activity. If you don't get the email for some reason, and you can jump into your trays and in the shortcuts bar, and there you'll find your activities due tray. Now with the activity, the user can right mouse click on it and actually show the record. So they can have a look at the record to begin with if they really wanted to. Alternatively, they can go into the properties of the activity and have a look and see what they need to do. They might pop into the notes and go, there's the instructions, that's what I need to do with this particular activity at the moment. So what I can do, review the letter to confirm the drafter, so I can go into my letter. I'll just double click on it to have a look at it. I'm not editing it, so I'm just going to have a look. And here's my letter. Yes, it was a very bad bubbles incident on down Mary Street the other day. So this is the letter we've received. We've reviewed the information, and we've determined who is going to actually draft a response to it. Close that. Go back to the activity, and what you can do now from here is you can complete the activity because we know who's going to draft the response. In this example, I'll reassign the next activity to myself just so you can see how this goes, but this would go off to another person. So when you complete the activity, it'll say, let you know when the activity was completed on, who completed it, how long you spent on it. And down the bottom here, you do have to select the result, and you just got to tag it and click OK. I get asked who's the assignee for the next activity. So for this example today, I will reassign it to myself so they keep coming back to me, but this would go off to another person, and click OK. And as you can see there, that activity has been completed. In a few minutes, I'll get the next email. But rather than wait for that, let's go back into our activities due tray, and there's the next activity. Also from here, I can suspend it. So if for some reason we've had an evacuation of the building and we need to suspend the time, otherwise I'm going to lose time as we evacuate the building, I can suspend the activity. I need to pop in the reason for my suspension. Fire evacuation. There we go. And you just need to set the total suspension time. So it might be an hour. And then you click OK. That is now suspended. The icon has changed for the next hour, so I can go through and evacuate the building. And then when I come back, I can actually resume the activity. So if I right click on it, I can go resume. That will kick the activity off again. There we go. And I can continue with what I have to do of this activity. Once again, you go into the properties and have a look to see what you need to do with it. There might be information under the notes. And as you can see under the notes, because I suspended it, it's actually popped the information in the notes there. Do whatever you need to do with this particular document. It was a draft a response, and I can complete this. Once again, when it was completed, I can draft the response. However, if I go to see, I've got a documents tab here now, I need to add in the drafted response. So I can right click on there, attach my content manager record. Down the bottom corner, the emails just come through. Need to go and find my drafted response because I've already saved it into Content Manager. Date registered today. And there's the outgoing letter there. So I've now attached the outgoing letter into the activity and click OK. For the purposes of the example, I will assign it back to myself once again. There we go. And the activity has gone to the next person. The email will come through, but to speed things up, I'll click on my activities due tray again. So this draft response has gone off to be approved. Once again, go through your properties, have a look at the activity, what you need to do with it. If it doesn't belong to you, you can reassign it. When you reassign it, it will ask you to select from the locations. Select the correct location, click OK, and the activity will be sent off to the next person. I have reviewed this particular document in this example, so I'm going to complete it, and I have decided that it hasn't been approved. It needs more work. So what I can do is I'll set the result as not approved, click OK. You have selected a rollback result. Do you want to do this? Yes. That'll go back to the previous activity and the previous assignee. They will receive an email advising that they've been assigned an activity again. Speeding things up, here's my activities due tray, and it's gone back to the previous activity. I will now go in to have a look at the properties, might look at the notes and find out why it's come back to me. Okay, then need to do some work on it, no worries. Go off, do your work on it, and then complete it again. Sorry about that. Response has been fixed up, and it'll go off to the next activity. You continue along this process until the workflow has been completed, and every activity can be assigned to different people. One other cool thing about Content Manager and the workflows is they can be completed in the web client. So if you do have Content Manager users that do not have the installed client, they can get into the web client and actually complete these activities. This is the 9.3 web client. And on the left-hand side, you will see work lists. Now, under work lists, you will see workflows. If you have been assigned any in here, they will actually load up and be on display. And being a Friday, we can't rush the web client. So these are all the ones I have kicked off in the past. There's the one that I can approve at the moment that is sitting in my full client. So what I can do from here is just expand the activity itself. When I update it, it'll actually go into the activity so I can make some updates. I can reassign it by clicking on the little person icon there, and I can reassign it to somebody else. The little ticks is completing it. And also from here, I can look at the notes. If there's any notes on here, I can add notes in here as well. I can look at the documents. So it'll take me over to the documents that I need to review. And I can look at the results. So, or I can determine the results. So from here, I can go, the draft response has been approved and completed. And you just assign the next activity to the next person. Which in this example, I will assign it back to me. And there's the email come through for it as well. There's a lot of me in here, that external. There we go. And save it. That goes off to the next person, and conveniently, there it is. So you do not have to have the install client to actually complete the workflow activities. You can do it solely from the web client as well. As I mentioned previously, you can kick off a workflow with no documents attached. So it might be something as simple as a reminder to go and collect the mail, open the mail, scan the mail, and that's all you might need to do. So no documents are involved, but it's got a bunch of steps in it that you need to make sure get done every single day. Now to do that is very simple. So under the home ribbon, you can do a new workflow. This allows you to, if you have permission, to create a new workflow or use an existing workflow. And I'm going to use my Australia Post Mail and click OK. Once again, it brings it up into the workflow editor, so you can see what the actual workflow is there. The first task has been assigned to me, so I just save it and it kicks off the workflow. Same process as before. The workflow will be saved, or the workflow is saved and the activities are sitting in the activities due tray. If you wanted to keep track of this particular workflow here, you can send it to your favorite workflows. Right-click Send to Favorites. And if I get rid of that and I want to keep a track of it, I can go into my favorites. There's my favorite workflows. And from here, I can actually have a look. I can reschedule it. I can open in Workflow Editor to see where it's at. Okay, so you can keep an eye on where things are. Is this the one older one that I have sitting here? And I can see that, oh, it's stuck right there. Document approved and published. I've been a bit slack. Oops. So you can add it to your favorites and you can also search for them as well. But that particular workflow I've kicked off in my activities due tray. There it is right there. Got to go collect the mail. So I might wander off down to Australia Post, collect the mail, because it tells me exactly what I need to do and just come back and go complete. I've collected the mail. Beautiful. See, there's no Documents tab. There's no document that needs to be attached. Assign it to the next person. It may be someone else who has to open all the mail. Close my activities due tray. You'll get an email. Oh, I've got to open all the mail. Okay, not a problem. So I might sit there, open all the mail, come back in here and complete my task. All the mail's been opened. Beautiful. Assign it to the next person. Goes off to the next person. Oh, I've got to scan it all in. All right, I'll sit there and scan it all in and save all the mail into Content Manager, not a problem. Scanned it all in, I've completed that activity, and that's actually the end of that workflow. Very, very simple. So to demonstrate, if I go back into my workflow templates, if I open up Australia Post Mail, I can show you there are no documents attached in any of these activities. I had nothing to do with documents for this particular workflow. So you can use it just as steps. Someone might have accidentally completed their Complete Australia Post Mail, but you get to open it's not there, so you can actually roll it back to go and get the mail. And the last activity there are no documents attached to this workflow. So one big benefit of the workflows is it's not document-centric. You can kick it off without having to attach anything to the workflow. And all my emails are now going to come through. I will deal with those when they come through. And as mentioned, this activities, you can complete them in the web client as well. So which is a bit of a bonus. That is a really quick overview of how the workflow works inside Content Manager. The hardest part is getting the workflow on paper. Do not recommend trying to create it straight into Content Manager because you'll be chopping and changing and going back and forth and making a mess of it. Get it right on paper first, then it makes it a lot easier to create it inside Content Manager itself. I'm going to hand back over to Darren. There you go.
Thanks, Kylie. I hope everyone had a good morning and got some valuable content out of that. From a McTish perspective, we offer a personalised and in-depth workflow training session. So if anyone wants to get into the deeper intricacies of Content Manager workflow, please reach out to the team or go to mctish.com.au/training to register any interest you've got there. Next webinar is going to be Friday, 31st of May, and it's going to be how to configure Microsoft Teams to facilitate external collaboration whilst maintaining security and control of your information. From our perspective, hot topic at the moment. There's been lots of talk and lots of movement in the Office 365 and Microsoft Teams functionality and suite around security and compliance. So I encourage everyone to come along. Again, thanks for your time this morning, and we will hopefully see you on Friday the 31st for the next webinar.